Hey, what's up everybody? I know it's Sunday, not Saturday. I was busy yesterday, so I wasn't able to do this update. I do have some really cool stickers that I'm going to be giving away. That's a Tezos sticker. Awesome, right? Here goes another one by mycryptodelegate.com. It looks like we have three delegation websites so far. It's Tezos Delegate, mycryptodelegate.com, and then tezigator.com, right? So that's really cool. Those are a few projects that are dealing with delegation and things like that, and most of them are on the testnet. I know that, or on the AlphaNet, I know that I signed up for tezigator.com via the testnet, or the AlphaNet, which is really cool because he loads like a fictitious amount of Tezos, like 100,000. He's like, now these are only to be used with the testnet, so don't get all excited and things like that. And then Stephen Andrews is working on a project, well, actually pretty much complete, I think, in terms of being complete. Tezbox, which is a MetaMask type extension for Google Chrome, and also if you go to your extensions in your Google Chrome browser and things like that, you can look up Tezbox, and he has like 100,000 Tezos loaded for you. And if you can somehow communicate with the AlphaNet, you can send and receive and all that good stuff. And there's actually been a Tezos block explorer since 2014. I forget who did that. I think it's Laments, some guy named Laments. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's really cool because you can go see all the hashes and things like that in the Tezos network, and so that's really cool. In terms of development, Arthur did an update, a dev update last week, or yeah, last week sometime, I believe. Was it Saturday? I'm not sure, but anyways, I will post I will add the link at the bottom of this video so you can see what that's all about. And basically what he's saying is he's starting to work on the documentation and things like that. They're having that progress is pretty much moving along, and that they're preparing themselves to launch with all the V1 features, the version 1 features of the Tezos protocol that were in the white paper, and then the V2 stuff, all the cool stuff will come later, which was always the plan. The idea now is to get the documentation going, get these V1 things in place, as many other projects like the delegations and the Tezbox added to the mainnet so they can launch as soon as possible and as safe as possible. And so in my last video I said that I had misinterpreted a tweet by Arthur Brietman in terms of when we might launch, and I said that it looks like we're going to launch in December, but no, the date is still February. So I apologize if I can confuse people on that, and I'll try to avoid doing things like that in the future. But yeah, so it looks like February is our date, but we still have a good launch date, and that's a set date, and it's on and popping from there. Like, yeah, Tezos is coming. What I want to talk about is I just want to mention one thing in this video here. Tezos looks to deal with four main problems that were inherent to the Bitcoin protocol, and one of them is the fork problem. Okay, so with Bitcoin, we see that we had a forking issue, right? There was an issue about transaction times, which were driving up transaction fees. However, they did not have a consensus mechanism built into the protocol, and they lacked coordination. Because they lacked that coordination, you had a split in value, right? So when everybody should have switched over from the Bitcoin network to Bitcoin Cash, nobody did. And so even though we see Bitcoin Cash going up in value, we don't see Bitcoin going up in value, right? Even though Bitcoin is still $6,000, just imagine, right, if all of that value would have stayed on one chain. And so in the Tezos protocol, right, and so that's the same issue with Ethereum. So, and Ethereum hasn't dealt with that, and Bitcoin hasn't dealt with that. Now in terms of Neo and Cardano and their proposals or solutions towards dealing with issues like the parity hack or Bitcoin's software or upgrade issues, I'm not sure where they're at or what they offer. Okay, so I can't really speak on that. But in terms of Tezos, what Tezos looks to do is to have a governance mechanism, a voting governance mechanism that is built into the protocol, where a majority of the people that vote on a change to the protocol, it solidifies the change basically. So even if you had a fork in the Tezos protocol, you don't have a split in value. You know, whereas in Ethereum and Bitcoin so far, right, and both the major hitters there, when there's an issue and you have to fork the network, you actually see a split in value. Because as Arthur Brietman brilliantly presented this in his TED Talks, in his TED Talk presentation, is basically you have a fork in the road, and he had a Bitcoin that just split in two basically, and each one went its own separate way. And it's almost like a game of chicken. You're waiting for the other one to see what the other one does. But because there's no coordination for stakeholders in both Ethereum and Bitcoin, they don't know where everybody's going. And so then you have a split in value. Wouldn't it be nice to have that extra $2 billion that you see in Ethereum Classic in Ethereum? Ethereum would be almost $36 billion. That'd be really awesome for stakeholders. Same thing with Bitcoin. So yes, we're seeing a rise in Bitcoin Cash, right? But that's, but now you're seeing stagnation in Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin's still $6,000. And Bitcoin Cash is rising, but at the same time, the original Bitcoin protocol is bogged down. It's bloated and it's fatigued. In my opinion, it's a horrible cryptocurrency. Point blank, period. Like, you cannot boast yourself as an awesome cryptocurrency when the name of the game is transaction speed, and transaction fees. I withdrew $300 from my Bitcoin from my Coinbase account to my debit card, right? It literally took 6 confirmations on the Bitcoin network to do that, and that alone took about an hour and a half, and it cost me $10. So just think about it. Tezos is talking about micropayments here. We're talking about transaction times that are, transactions and transaction times that are much more efficient than in a Bitcoin and Ethereum combined at that point. Because Tezos isn't going to launch, right? They don't plan to launch with the ability to only accommodate 10 to 20 to 30, but below 50 transactions per second. And who knows how much the fees are. I'm not sure how much the fees are in the Ethereum network, but that's the amount of transactions that Ethereum is capable of doing right now. So how do you deal with that? How do you get more transactions and keep the payments low or keep the fees low? Well, in the Ethereum network, they can't do that on chain. They can't scale on chain. So now you have proposals like Raiden, and I think one that is more supported by Vitalik is Plasma, where you have these side chains that come in, right? Well, then that confuses users as well, because then won't the side chain just become the new chain? I mean, think about it. If it costs tons of money to transact and time on the Ethereum or Bitcoin protocols, and you introduce a side chain, then what's the point of using the core protocol in the first place? Right? Maybe that's why Raiden launched with a coin. I mean, it's crazy to think about that you'd have 2 existing structures at that point for a store of value, and and the whole idea behind cryptocurrency is to circumvent a central authority, essentially, right? And to increase transaction speed and transaction time. So now, basically, I can't do that on chain in terms of in the sense of Ethereum and the Bitcoin original protocols. So I bring in a side chain. That's basically like forking a network. That's the way that I see it. And so then, doesn't that fork become more valuable if it can accommodate more transactions and faster transaction times, which leads to lower fees? I mean, who really in their right mind is going to continue to pay? Like, I got $10 in Bitcoin. I want to send it to somebody. So you mean to say I got to spend 15 to send 10? You might as well send it Western Union in terms of the fees and the time that it's going to take to get there. Now, in terms of the speed on Ethereum, I'm not sure if it's faster than Bitcoin. I'd imagine that it would be, but it's still only processing up to 10 to 30 transactions per second. And Neo, for that matter, is tens of thousands per second. So if the name of the game is to increase transactions, transaction times, and lower transaction fees, then I don't understand. I don't see how I don't see how Ethereum is going to be able to stay in the game much longer outside of its network effect. In terms of dealing with issues like upgrades and Say if you get, so Ethereum had its issue with the parity wallet thing, where some kid accidentally, supposedly, froze up millions of dollars in Ether. Well, you just forked the network, right? Okay, well, if you just forked the network, we're right back at square one with the Ethereum Classic and Ethereum problem, right? Again, wouldn't you like that $2 billion in Ethereum to be within the one chain of Ethereum, right? That would add a couple $1 billion to its market cap. But instead, they don't have a way to keep the chain together and deal with an issue. Whereas in Tezos, Tezos is launching with the governance mechanism, whereas if you have an issue, whether it's upgrade or these types of issues where people are losing money, if you need to deal with that issue, you can fork the network, yeah. Tezos still has the ability to fork, but because you have a voting mechanism built into your core protocol, you don't have a split in value. All of those users and all of those stakeholders still move over to the new fork, right? But the idea behind Tezos is to not have forks as much as possible. So when you do have issues and things like that, Tezos is also developing itself to keep up with innovation. So as innovation comes and as new technology and new features and new ways of doing things are presented to the blockchain space in general, Tezos has a way of adopting all those new changes. Right? So that's awesome when you think about the longevity of a protocol and the longevity of a cryptocurrency, an everyday means of payment. Tezos has most definitely positioned itself to be the end all be all in a way. And I don't mean to say that as if Tezos is not going to encounter problems or Ethereum is shit or Bitcoin is shit, because they're not. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying innovation is innovation. Right? Better techniques are better techniques. Better tech is better tech. That's just how the game works. That's how it is. That's a fact. And so even though Tezos hasn't launched yet and it has yet to be tested, this is yet to be seen as reliable. In theory, we see that the issues that plague the Ethereum and Bitcoin protocols have to be dealt with. And the way of dealing with them so far has been problematic. There's no general consensus, or there's coordination issues basically that doesn't allow for some type of general consensus to surround a problem and for a chain to stay in one piece. And because that chain doesn't stay in one piece, it loses its value, right? And eventually you're going to cut your pie into so many pieces that your $300, $400 per whatever coin you have looks more like 22, 22, 22, 22, so on and so forth. Where in Tezos, if you have problems like hacks and things like that, you deal with those and you fork your network, then everybody moves over. The value stays there. If you need upgrades to the protocol, then you just upgrade the protocol. All the value stays there. But again, even if you fork the network, it's based on a majority of vote, right? So you don't have this issue where you have miners basically forcing the hands of others to stay, and then somehow you have a percentage where other people are able to, there's a certain, there's a certain, maybe like miners, certain amount of miners that had enough clout, basically like developers that have enough clout to, resist the major move from another big mining pool, for example, or developer pool and things like that with a lot of clout. And so then you have two chains, right? And Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Essentially, that's what I think what happened was with them, or with that issue, is that you had developers with a lot of clout, basically a lot of mining power and things like that. You had two sets and one was bigger than the other, but yet the smaller one was still large enough in number to force a network split and to force its own chain as well. And so again, in the Tezos network, you just won't have those problems, because that's the whole point. That's one of the issues that out of the four that Tezos is looking to deal with. That's the whole point of Tezos. It's the whole reason. The whole reason behind their philosophy is to deal with these issues that split value. And when you split value, that's really, really bad for stakeholders. And for people that are coming into this space, you guys are looking to make a lot of money and things like that. Well, you can lose a lot of money if these types of issues aren't dealt with, right? And Tezos is also trying to position itself to be a long-term alternative to traditional forms of currency. It's the way that you do this, the way that you create longevity, is by thinking about forward thinking and and dealing with the issues of your predecessors or the people that have went before you, right? You deal with these issues, so you don't have major forks that split the value of a network. You have a general consensus mechanism, a governance mechanism that you have in place on chain to deal with upgrades to the protocol. This allows you to take in and adopt innovations as they come down the pipeline in the future. And you sustain yourself and you position yourself as an anchor to become the end all be all, if you will, to cryptocurrencies. And I'm not saying that Tezos is going to be the only cryptocurrency. I'm not saying that anything is going to, that Ethereum is going to go away or that Bitcoin is going to go away. Bitcoin Cash or whatever the case may be. Cardano and Neo, they're doing great things. Quantum and IOTA with the Tangle, those are awesome projects. And I think that everybody in this space, all of these different blockchains have they all have similar views. However, because of the lack of resources and things like that, they all look to tackle very specific problems. And so moving forward, because we haven't seen mass adoption yet, moving forward, we're going to need the knowledge of all of these folks. You know, Vitalik and Arthur Brietman are some of the brightest in the biz. You know, if you think Vitalik's a genius, then, you know, just know that Arthur Brietman is a genius too, just as much. You know, I've seen him talk. I've seen some of his Twitter posts. And, you know, he literally uses math, right, to explain something that's crazy. And I've watched very, very intelligent individuals and mathematically oriented people read this post in which he kind of articulates an idea with mathematics and words in between every night, like and, but, and things like that. And that's fascinating when you know, if the idea behind supporting these guys that start up these blockchains is their intelligence, then Tezos most definitely has that going for itself too, in the form of Arthur Brietman, not to mention his wife and some of the other a lot of the dev team. And to my knowledge, that most of the dev team has, you know, I think 4 or 5 of them have PhDs in computer science. You know, and one of the advisors is from Cornell, and he's a professor in computer science and things like that. So, with all of that being said, governance, coordination, these are all things that have plagued the Bitcoin and Ethereum protocols, and they haven't been dealt with. And bringing in a side chain confuses stakeholders and only splits the value. Forking a network only splits the value if you don't have a way of pushing everybody over to the new fork. Well, Tezos offers a solution to that. And so that's what I'm here to tell everybody. I am not an expert in blockchain technology whatsoever. I only started getting into this space about a year ago, but I've become completely fascinated with where this is all going. And I've said this a few times in my last videos, that I believe that blockchain is going to change the world. When you see governments, right, and you see banks like IBM and Samsung joining consortiums and governments calling for the research and development of blockchains and private blockchains, and you can put voting systems on blockchains. You can revolutionize the way healthcare is ran on blockchains. A lot of our legacy systems that have been so bloated and fatigued can be optimized with the use of blockchain technology. And so then you gotta. So if you're going to use the blockchain as you know, in terms of smart contracts, right? Well, you're still then governance and coordination become immensely important. Don't even get me started with computer language and things like that, and why Tezos chose to go with OCaml instead of JavaScript. That's a totally different, you know, that's another ball game, but it still fits into that narrative. You know, if UNICEF is going to use a blockchain in order to optimize the way that it distributes its food to the, you know, impoverished world, then governance and coordination, the things that Bitcoin and Ethereum pretty much lack in every aspect, become very, very important. And these are the things that Tezos thought about from the get-go. And coordination and governance and things like that are baked into its core protocol. So if you're looking to understand more about why these issues going forward have to be dealt with, then I would advise you to go read the Tezos white paper. In terms of making an investment, you do your own research, right? Because I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to tell you to buy Tezos, Ethereum, Neo, or whatever. But what I am here to tell you is that Look, the issues that you see with Ethereum, Bitcoin, and these other blockchain protocols and stuff like that, Tezos is proposing to deal with by baking the solutions into the core protocol. So if Ethereum wants to fix if Bitcoin or Ethereum wanted to fix their actual chains of value and they wanted to be able to upgrade them, how would they do it? That's what you have to ask yourself. How are they going to do that? Are you going to bring in a side chain? Are you going to fork the network? Okay, what about it? How are we going to have the coordination? Where's the coordination that keeps at least the store of value, the stakeholders together? How do we move everybody from here to there in order to adopt the new features and to run more efficiently? Right now, Ethereum, Bitcoin especially, but Ethereum as of right now doesn't have the ability to do that. So what do you do then? How does a blockchain that doesn't have these mechanisms baked into its core protocol get them baked into their core protocol? And I think you'd be surprised to find out what the answer is. And I think that's the reason why you have to bake them in the protocol from the get-go. And so with that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Again, I will post links to the delegation websites that I have here, and also the TedTalks presentation by Arthur, which is really cool because he has this there's a scene in there where he uses cats to demonstrate an issue, and also his dev update in the comments below. Thanks you guys for watching, and let's go Tezos. See you guys later. Bye bye.